Hi, this is Doug Upstone of Doc Sports, and I'm back, like I promised I would be from the last video, to talk about college basketball. And specifically, what I'm talk about is normally Scott Spreitzer and I have been doing videos last couple of weeks on college basketball, and circumstances this week prevented us from doing it. We will be doing them forward, but I thought because I'll just fly solo this week, okay, and share it with you. But what I'm going to talk about is, like I said, college basketball, and specifically got a half a dozen games to go over. In this case, got a couple spreads, which we know as I'm doing this Friday a.m. my time, but some of the spreads obviously for Saturday are not out yet, so they're just approximate values. So we'll just go over some of them. Okay, the games themselves are they're not all marquee games. In fact, there's not that many marquee games this week in college basketball. But so what we ventured out and looked at is some matchups from some lesser known conferences in some cases. So that's the agenda. So we're going to get to that and cover that right now. One thing that lets you know, speaking of college basketball, you can go to my page and get $60 of free picks. Okay, don't have to do anything. They're absolutely free. Just sign up. It's an easy sign up as well. Just take care of it that way, and you get $60 of my free plays. Free plays daily are $30 a piece, so you can pick yourself up some picks, some top-rated selections. So check that out at Doc Sports. All right, let's get to it. First game is going to be on Friday night, Louisiana Tech and North Texas. In this Conference USA matchup, they actually have kept two divisions, which is different than what everybody else is doing. And they got a 14-team league, and they decided to keep them. That's fine. I mean, that's what they've always had, and they kept it intact. Both Louisiana Tech and North Texas are in the West Division, and North Texas is 5-1, and Louisiana Tech is 7-3. They're both trying to chase down UAB, who is 7-1. Now, the Mean Green can make this a two-team race in their division because they're going to play Louisiana Tech both Friday and Saturday. That's what Conference USA has done to avoid travel. And North Texas is 7-0 and 6-0 against the spread at home. But the reason that part of the reason the record is so good, they've played 3 absolute cupcakes. And so they're winning by 29.4 points per game. So it's a little inflated. Now, Louisiana Tech is 5-3 against the spread on the road this season. And they're 6-2 straight up and against the spread when playing with 3 or more days rest, like they are right now. I was hoping this game would be, let's just say, my power ratings had it basically right around 6. It's at 4.5, not the value I would hope for, but I would at least, looking into this, I would at least lean with Louisiana Tech in this one. And if they happen to lose, I think it might have some value coming right back on Saturday. All right, next up, the South Dakota and South Dakota State. Okay, if you know anything about Summit League basketball, and I do, you know the games between the Dakota schools, both North and South, they're always heated. Now, they're not always close, okay, but the temperature is always warm because the proverbial, these teams don't like each other. It is true, though, okay, that's definitely the case. Now, both these teams are, in South Dakota, are undefeated in conference play. South Dakota themselves, they're 8-0 against the spread. South Dakota State is 4-0 against the spread. Obviously, there's been some COVID issues for South Dakota State. That's why they've played so many fewer games. The Jackrabbits are the stronger club, and Jackrabbits, I'm referring to South Dakota State, but they lost to the Coyotes earlier this year, 91-78 in the middle of December, even though that wasn't a conference game, because they had the Battle of the Dakotas, and each school played the other 3 consecutive days just to try and get some volume of games picked up. South Dakota themselves, they are the better offensive team, and so I don't mind taking the 7.5 on Friday, or if you'd rather wait and see, if South Dakota State wins, you might be able to get a little more value even on Saturday with South Dakota. I know there's a lot of South Dakota talk, but I'm trying my best to keep it that, so that you can understand it. So South Dakota plus the points on Friday and maybe on Saturday too. Okay, moving ahead to Saturday, Alabama and Missouri. That's going to be a good game. Noon start on ESPN2. If Alabama wins at Columbia, the regular season title is basically theirs. They would have a 4-game lead in the loss column and that would be over Missouri, who's in second place. So that would, it wouldn't for sure wrap it up, because if they had some injuries or something on the Crimson Tide, but boy, they'd be in great shape to be regular season champs this year, which would be a huge surprise. I mean, a huge surprise this year. Now, Missouri, they got a veteran club, okay? I think they had 90% of their scoring coming back from last year, and they've done a nice job. So in order to pull the upset in this game, they're going to have to do their best to contain Alabama's long-range shooters, rebound like madmen, and win the battle of the boards, which is exactly what Oklahoma did last week to beat Alabama. So that's their best chance. Nate Oates, the Alabama coach, his team has done a very good job in recent games. In the early part of when they were winning all these SEC games, they were just overwhelming teams with their speed and their defense. Teams have figured out to try and slow them down, but yet they have kept winning, and they have found different ways to win. So they're picking up different styles of play, which will be invaluable to them once they get into the NCAA tournament. Can Missouri win? Yes, they can. But I'm just having a hard time going against Alabama at this point. I'm thinking Alabama might be a slight favorite in this one, so I will take the Crimson Tide. Next up, St. Bonaventure's, St. Louis in the A10. No team in the A10 has been hurt more by the coronavirus than St. Louis. They've only played 10 games so far, and they're 7-3. Now, they've had so many starts and stops, missed so many practices. It's been disruptive, and it's been particularly disruptive in this last break because they started the season 7-1, and so when they finally got into conference play, what did they do? They lost their first 2 games. So that's put them behind the 8 ball. Now, they were supposed to be, along with St. Bonaventure's, one of the contenders to win the A10 this year. We'll have to see if they can really turn their season around. The Bonnies, they're at the top of the list in the A10 at 7-1 and 6-2 against the spread, and they're outscoring teams by 11 points per game. I'm not saying St. Louis can't win, but I'm not gonna back the Billikens until I know that they have turned things around. And as going into this game, I do not know that. All right, moving ahead to the Big Ten on the Fox Network. It's going to be a featured game, and they've been promoting it as we've seen this weekend. Wisconsin at Illinois. I've seen some talk about Wisconsin, and it's kind of strange to me, but there's been in a season, Wisconsin hasn't played as well as everyone expected. I mean, they were supposed to be true contenders in the Big Ten. I mean, they're in the upper half of the Big Ten still, but they said they have too much experience. I've heard comments like that. And so that the players are a little stale. They're a little bored. They've been around Madison a long time playing basketball. I'm not buying it, okay? Because all the best teams this year are those that have a veteran cast. So why would Wisconsin be the exception if they really haven't had any injuries? I think the bigger thing is with the Badgers is that the Big Ten is really hard this year. I mean, home or away, doesn't make any difference. Home court advantage hasn't meant a whole heck of a lot, especially against the spread. And the other thing I think of Wisconsin with all these older players, you know what? They're just not getting any better. Okay, I think they've kind of reached their ceiling as players. There's really, I don't see any NBA prospects there. Maybe some guys can play overseas, don't know, but I don't see a lot of that. I just think that like I said, I think they've just kind of reached their high water mark, and that's the reason why they haven't gotten better or met expectations. Now, after Illinois lost 2 straight games, their season was headed south, okay? Especially compared to preseason expectations. I believe that at one point they were 4th in the country. And they had fallen out to where they were I think 22nd or something like that. But then they had 2 good wins. Okay, they beat Iowa, and then they won at Indiana this week in overtime. And they did it showing in both cases, in my opinion, a lot of intestinal fortitude. I mean, in either game, they weren't awesome, and they ran into some real dry spells, but they overcame them. And I think the possibility is they could change the complete trajectory of their season going forward with those types of victories. Now, when you play Wisconsin, it's never easy. But you know what? In this case, Illinois has the better athletes. I think they have the better team, and they're at home. I think they'll be favored somewhere in the 3-5 range. Let's take the Fighting Illini over Wisconsin. Finally, the last game. And it's the one that it doesn't have quite as much panache this year for a lot of reasons, but North Carolina at Duke. I say this is not your typical North Carolina Duke game by any stretch. No crowd, okay, this year, or maybe there'll be some fans, but it certainly won't be the same like we're used to, just with the howling and everything going on. And the other thing that's different is there is not a slew of NBA talent that is going to be on the floor. Now, North Carolina, their big men in their front line is still very good. I'm not sure it's certainly not as good as prior teams, but it's still, among the best in the ACC, that's for sure. But what North Carolina lacks is guard play. And their half-court possessions, more often than not, are they're just not very good, okay? And it's because of their guards, which is then compounded by the fact that they don't shoot the ball well from distance. So what they're doing, they're playing to their strengths, they're rebounding well, going to the boards, and that's the game they're playing. Duke is, they've gone the route of one and dones. And in this case, this team is not a good one and done group. They might have some NBA players down the road, but there's nobody that's leaving this team that it's going to go directly to the NBA and be an impact factor right away. This team is immature. I'm not saying that's not a personal matter. It's just it's not a mature type group, and there's a lack of leadership from some of the older players on this team for whatever reason. In both cases, these teams have had trouble at the end of games snagging wins that were there for them. Just haven't gotten it done. So that's why they're having the kind of seasons that they are. To me personally, I think this is a really hard choice. I think Duke is going to end up being a 2 to 3 point favorite on their home court. In this case, I'll take the Tar Heels with the points. All right, so there's 6 games for you, something to think about. Okay, my opinions on some games. So normally next week I'll be doing this with Scott Spreitzer, so you can check it out at the Doc site. So we'll handle again. So there you have it. I'll be back with more videos this weekend still. So this is Doug Upstone for Doc Sports. Until next time, I'm out.